keeping the door open and constantly loving on everybody and just being generous, I think that people have been intrigued.
Look up at heaven and say, why did you let these accidents happen? And I realized, in my, I don't even want to call it depression, it was way worse than that. But after losing Steve and Matt, I realized that I had a decision to make, and I could be a victim, and I could blame God, and I could feel sorry for myself, like I'm just a victim of bad circumstances, or I can do something about it to honor the lives of Steve and Matt.
Hi, and welcome back to another interview on the Heart Healthy Hustle podcast. Joined today, we have Cole and Sanja Hatter. Cole is going to be joining us for a brief moment before he runs out, but we are interviewing Sanja Hatter, who is a proud wife, a supermom, and an entrepreneur. Sanja, along with her husband, Cole Hatter, is the co-founder of Thrive, Make Money Matter. Thrive is a conference for entrepreneurs and business professionals who want to discover practical income-growing business strategies, create a positive impact in the world, and leave a lasting legacy. Sanja, Cole, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What's up, bro? Thanks for having us.
So let's go ahead and start out. What is a favorite success quote or a saying you live by, and share with the audience what it means to you?
My goodness, I'm terrible with quotes. Babe, you go first.
So the one that I quote the most is John C. Maxwell. He says, "The truth is you can spend your life any way you want, but remember you can spend it only once." So I always quote that one from stage because I think it's an important reminder that regardless if people think that you have reincarnation and get to live life again or just die and become dirt or go to heaven or whatever, we can all agree this is our one shot at this life, so make it count.
That's great. I was just looking at, I have some signs in my office that I like, and I don't know who said them, but it says, "Don't count the days, make the days count." That's what Cole just said. And then the other one says, "Life is not measured by the number of breaths we take, but by the moments that take our breath away." And I just really like those, and I don't know who said them.
So while I have you guys both together for this short time, I want to ask you, I know there are multiple interviews with you guys out there. People can go and watch those and hear the full story of how Thrive got started. We want to touch on that. But share with the audience how you guys found each other and how that relationship came about. When I see you guys as a couple, I look at that as goals for my life. I know where you guys stand spiritually as well. I'm also a man of faith, so I want to know, what do I need to do to facilitate a relationship like the one you guys have in my own life?
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
So, I'll tell you about the day Sanja was blessed to have me walk into her. I'm just kidding.
Ew.
No, we went to high school together. We weren't close friends. We would just say, like, what's up, what's up? We were in different social groups. So maybe, 20 conversations throughout the total 4 years between the two of us. Then we graduated, went our own ways, dated other people, became adults. And I was 24. She was 23. This is 6 years after high school. And my buddies and I went out to sushi in a city here where we live called Laguna Beach. And I went up to the bartender to grab a drink while we were waiting. And it sure enough was Sanja, who I hadn't seen in quite some time, who is now like the grown-up version. She was always cute in high school, but now she was like freaking smoking hot. So I was like, "Yo, Sanja, what's up?" And that was where our reconnection began. And then literally it's been 10 years now and I can't get her to leave me alone still. So that was the reconnection as far as, how we met. We already knew each other from high school. Again, not only did we not date, we weren't super close. I wouldn't even say that we were really friends. We were just like acquaintances. And then again, met in adult life, started dating. One thing led to another. She dumped me. And then I got her back, asked her to marry me. She said, "Heck yes." Now we have our 2 little babies. So that's the overview, how we're as happy as we are and stuff. Could be another conversation, but you have anything to add to that?
No, but I really like that. You did that really quickly. And
I just condensed 10 years into 20 seconds.
Yeah,
so
that's what I'm saying.
There's a lot of details there, but I'm just giving you the cliff notes.
You did a great job.
Awesome. That's a beautiful story. I don't think I've ever heard a love story in such a short period of time. No, but that is awesome. I have heard you guys' story before on another interview. It's inspiring to see you guys together. I know you were attracted, Cole, as you said, and Sanja, you as well. But did you guys have conversations before that marriage occurred about, do your values align, and what did those look like? How did you facilitate those kind of healthy conversations prior to marriage?
That I'll jump in. When we were dating, we had different value systems. And quite honestly, that's why I was originally attracted to Sanja. I had just gotten out of a relationship that ended pretty terribly. And so I was not interested in anything long-term. Sanja was the same way. So we even joked and we're like, cool, we each other's rebounds. This is going nowhere. Let's just have fun. And then it lasted 10 years. But there were several things about her that I knew was nothing that I would have long-term. For instance, she smoked cigarettes, right? She being European, like every single person in her family smokes like 72 packs a day. And then that whole, bartender 72. Scene, they do too. Yeah, not 72 cigarettes, 72 packs a day, right? And so I would never be with someone that smoked. And so I was like, hey, I don't care that you smoke. But she ended up quitting like 2 months into it because I was like, hey, this is gross. So when we originally dated, we were not a match. And I think we were both like good with that and glad about it because we're like, cool, we can have some fun. We're not going to date around. We'll be exclusive, but we know this is a means to an end. So it's no pressure. And actually, I think that was kind of healthy because we didn't have the jealousy issues. I remember her going to Vegas with her girlfriends, and I was like, I don't even care because, like, I know this isn't going to work out anyway, so go have fun in Vegas. Whatever happens, happens. So that actually, I think, kind of helped. And then as we fell in love, we both kind of met in the middle of again, not sacrificing or compromising who we are, but realizing that as we wanted to live a life together, we both had things to change. And since you mentioned the faith aspect, I grew up in the church. I've been involved in the church my entire life. And so while we were dating, every single Sunday, I'd say, Sanja, we want to come to church. And her background, religion was kind of a leverage point, like a tool used against her, which is sad that a lot of people do that. It's not about a relationship with God. It's about, hey, here's what the Bible says. And if you don't do this, you're going to burn in hell. And so the experiences she had was people leveraging it against her. And so her response was, hey, I believe in God, but I just don't want anything to do with this if it's all about threatening and all
judgment.
Judgment, all that. So, and I respected that because I know that, again, everybody's a human and they make their own decisions. And then they call themselves a religious group and they act in their own way. And then the outside world looking in says, oh, well, everyone who believes what you believe must act and think the same you do, which I think is very dangerous, right? And so that being said, I wouldn't push it on her. I wouldn't say, hey, you need to come to church or else you're a bad person, like some people told her. I was like, hey, I'm going. You coming or not? She's like, nope. And I was like, all right, cool. Well, I'm going. I'll see you later. And that took like 3 years of me just being alone until finally she ends up dumping me. I moved to Mexico to be a missionary. And while I was gone, she kind of was like, okay, maybe I'll on my own now that I want to do it, check this thing out, and ended up, finding her faith and having a relationship with God. So to get back to your original question, when we dated, our values were very different. And then over the course of about 2.5 years of dating, neither one of us compromising for the other, but as we grew and mature, we kind of grew together. And then I realized one day, like, oh my gosh, like my only hangups on Sanja, like, oh, she smokes, she doesn't want to have anything to do with the church, and I want to raise my kids in the church. She doesn't, those things are actually perfectly in alignment. She quit smoking within probably 8 weeks of us dating. She's going to church more than I am now and like reading her Bible and praying and stuff. It's like, wow. Holy crap, this girl that like was safe for me to date because I knew it would go nowhere is like my absolute dream woman, and everything I'd wanted in a woman, she now has. And
we weren't talking.
Yeah, we weren't talking. We broke up for 10 months. When I say we broke up, she dumped me because she had a moment of lapse of judgment, and I'm just kidding.
Moment of insanity.
So she dumped me. And then likewise, I wanted to travel the world. I didn't ever want to even buy a house. I wanted to live in a new city every 6 weeks. I wanted to be a nomad and just go and surf in Australia and then go and hang out in Europe and all that. And she wanted to be rooted. She wanted to like plant, have a family. So on my side, there were things that she didn't like. She's like, hey man, you can go travel the world, but my husband and I, when I find him, we're going to have our kids, have jobs, live in a house. Our kids are going to go to school. Like we're going to have a normal life. And I was like, oh, no way, man. I want to live in a new place every other week. And as I matured and, not because she persuaded me, but I was like, you know what? I do want a family. I do want kids. And I can see how dragging them around the world would be kind of a bummer for them to not be able to have long-term friendships, et cetera. So those are just some high-level examples of how we were very different. And then just as we grew and matured as individuals and then fell in love as a couple, we kind of met. I don't want to say met in the middle because it sounds like we were compromising. We both, in our own natural evolution, ended up coming together, and it worked out.
Thank you for sharing that. Not enough can be said about behavior modification and religion versus a loving relationship with God. Big difference there. And I'm really grateful to see the story that you two have unfold and encourage so many other people in the process. It's really beautiful. And now you have 2 beautiful children. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Eliana and Brighton.
And how old are they?
2 and 6.
Wow. So, Sanja, how have you transitioned from struggling to find your purpose to now being a strong, structured woman of vision, focused on giving and lifting others up?
Yeah, I definitely never thought that I would be where I'm at right now. Like Cole said, I like the structured life. I wanted the house. I wanted the kids. I wanted to always be around. And so the thought of being an entrepreneur was very terrifying. I liked my steady jobs that I had from 9 to 5. It was safe, put my money in my bank account, didn't invest it in anything. Just the typical immigrant mindset that I was raised with my parents. So seeing Cole being an entrepreneur and having him do real estate and, we wouldn't get paid for the whole month. And then all of a sudden the next month's a big payday. So that's just scared me and I didn't like it. And so as Cole and I got closer and then we got married, I kind of just fell into this role, just helping him. We had Brighton and people were trying to get a hold of Cole and I was just at home. And so I started answering emails for him. I'd see messages come through on Facebook and I'm like, oh, let me write a little list of all these questions people have for Cole. Maybe I can catch them and I can help these people out because Cole was just all over the place. He was speaking. He's running his own business. He just didn't have time for the emails. And I think he just got overwhelmed with how many were there. So I got like a little notepad and I wrote down all the questions. And then when he'd be in the shower, I just start asking him. And then I'd get all the answers back to the people and they just saw I was more efficient coming through me. And so I fell into the role of kind of being his assistant. And then it just keeps evolving. And now I'm running some stuff for him and we're just a great team. He has the visions and I have to try and execute them.
I think she gave herself credit with that. So, that is how it started. I was running the business. She was running the house. We always say that she's CEO of the house. I'm CEO of the business. And we both sit on each other's board of advisors and have strong votes. But ultimately, she's the majority vote holder, chair holder, position holder, whatever you want to call her for the house. So for very personal things like, are our kids going to be homeschooled, public school, private school? Are we going to immunize or not? Those types of conversations, I have an opinion, but she literally makes it her life of research and all that stuff. So I trust her judgment. Likewise with the business. If I come home and say, hey, babe, we're going to drop 50 G's on this tomorrow, or hey, we're going to do Thrive and drop $500,000 on this tomorrow. Yeah. She's like, wow, that sounds scary, but okay, I trust you. And so it did start with me running the businesses and people would be like, Sonny, what does your husband do? She's like, I don't really know, like real estate and like this event called Thrive. And but then it evolved, as she said, to I got so overwhelmed. People started going around me and going to her. And then she started taking those questions to me. Then she started answering those questions on her own because they were coming in faster than she could get answers from me. And then she just took initiative and just started running things. And now, as of today, she probably runs 80 to 90% of Thrive. I, like she said, do the big picture vision of it, but the actual hotel contract negotiation, food ordering, all the details, all of the moving parts she does. And so she really runs the business. I run the experience, if that makes sense. What Thrive feels like comes from me. The reason Thrive actually happens is because of her.
Cole, being aware of parts of your story of turning tragedy into triumph, I've listened to a few interviews with you and you've shared the tragic story, of losing those closest to you in an accident there. And I'm really curious, during this time, so many of us have huge struggles that we are still wrestling through. And, you being a man of faith, I'm wondering if you would be willing to, what did the wrestling with God look like during this time for you? If you'd be willing to touch on that at all.
Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting season for me when all that happened. I just through my own life have gotten more and less involved in the church, right? Growing up as a kid, I didn't really have a choice. My parents took me. Then when I started to get my independence and I was in high school, definitely going out and partying with my buddies on a Saturday night and sleeping in church on Sunday morning. Not sleeping in and not making it to church became my routine in high school. And then I graduated high school and moved up to Seattle, Washington to be a firefighter and was a quote unquote adult where I had no social life anymore because they were all down in Orange County and I'm living in Seattle now. I'm living on my own, the whole deal for the first time. I just kind of went back to the church, and because I think honestly it was because I had no other social life, nothing to do. I wanted to hang out with people. And then I on my own decided probably for the first time in my life around 1920 that I, for my own reasons, wanted to have a relationship with God, and the accident happened 2 years later. So that being said, like, had that transition not happened, I don't know how differently it would have been, but I was already very much involved in my faith when these accidents happened. So that was huge. If it had happened in high school when I was going to church, 5-6 times a year versus weekly, it might have been a different story. So that's kind of important that I was in a season of really diving deep in my faith. So I did initially, after the accidents, yell at God and look up at heaven and say, why did you let these accidents happen? And why didn't you stop the car accident? Why didn't you close the mine shaft? Like, why don't you do things differently? And then I realized, in my, I don't even want to call it depression. It was way worse than that. But after losing Steve and Matt, I realized that I had a decision to make, and I could be a victim, and I could blame God, and I could feel sorry for myself, like I'm just a victim of bad circumstances, or I can do something about it to honor the lives of Steve and Matt, and just instead of feeling sorry for myself and being humdrum Eeyore for the rest of my life, mad at God, that I could just use this as a reason to motivate me to do bigger things with my life than I thought possible. So, and I went to Campus Crusade for Christ's winter conference that was led by a guy named Mike Erie, who completely rocked my life. That weekend was also, so I lost Steve in September. I lost Matt in November and ended up at a 1 week long Christian college conference in December. And so it was just a few of those, I guess, those three ingredients. Number one, that I had already decided to be a man of faith on my own without just my parents telling me to at about 19. So that was important part of these accidents happening while I was very involved. Number two was realizing that being a victim wasn't going to help anybody. And then number three was that conference that I went to of having an entire week of being led by just amazing men and women of faith. And I came out of that weekend and decided that I wanted to start my nonprofit. And went forward and did it. And, that was kind of the turning point. So as far as wrestling with God from September till about December, I was looking up and asking why and kind of pointing blame, like, you could have ended this and you didn't. So you kind of suck. And then realized pretty quickly that, again, that's not productive and that's not going to honor Steve and Matt. And so, that was it as far as there being a process that's duplicatable for other people, right? That was my individual circumstances. But as far as a takeaway, I think we all just need to decide on our own instead of people forcing us. Same thing happened with Sanja. I was like, come to church. She's like, no. Then I moved to Mexico and she on her own was like, okay, I'll go. So I think we all on our own just need to come to the decision of wanting a relationship with God and wanting to pursue faith and wanting to go deeper in that. And then when things come up in life, not if, but when, we already have that foundation. Eric Thomas is a number one motivational speaker. He was just talking at our mastermind last weekend. And he said, so many people wait until the storm is here to get prepared. You need to get prepared for the storm. And he talked about how he has his morning routine where he's in prayer for like 2 hours, and he's done that for like 20 years. And then when his wife was he wakes up at 3 a.m. Every single day. Eric Thomas wakes up at 3 a.m. and from 3 to 5 is in prayer. And then at 5 starts his business day. He said that 3 years ago when his wife was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis, it rocked his entire world. But the way that he was able to get through it is because he had already been daily in prayer for the last 20 years. He already had built his routines for facing the storm before the storm came. And although it sucked, he was prepared because he had already had everything going. So I think that, for all of us, we need to not just wait to talk to God when things suck. And then when things are good, forget there's a God there, but have this on our own, choosing to have a relationship so that when things come, like for me, those 2 accidents that took my 2 best friends, or Eric Thomas with his wife being diagnosed with MS, or whatever these life events are that are going to always happen because we're living in the real world, that it's not at that point you go to God, that the foundation's already there. And that was how it was with me. And that was a huge part of how I recovered.
That's so beautiful, babe. I love
Thanks. You. Love you too.
Anyway.
You still there, bro?
Yeah, I'm just letting that resonate.
Okay. Yeah, well, so that was the answer.
Yeah. I do appreciate you sharing that, Cole. Sanja, I'm not sure exactly how the time frame lined up with this, but how did you support Cole and navigate that kind of turbulence during times of working through these tragedies? And
yeah, we weren't together at that time. When Steve passed, I heard one of my friends that dated him, she told me. And so I heard about it, and I heard when the funeral was happening, and my heart broke for Cole because I knew how close they were just from high school. I worked with Steve. So I would see Cole come pick up Steve, and they would go have fun. And, so I heard about it, but I wasn't with him at that time. And so I think that's also why he dated me, because he had been surrounded by everybody that had to go through that experience. And so he knew that I knew Steve. I mean, he saw that we worked together, but I wasn't as close. So I was kind of safe. So we didn't have to ever bring it up, And so.
Yeah, I think to Sanja's point, that is part of it. I didn't like, and everyone to each their own, but I didn't like, what's the word? I love that people cared for me, but I hated that those that were in my life who saw me go through that, treated me differently, almost I don't know how to explain it. I missed Steve and Matt, but I didn't want people to, I can't think of the words. I'm talking about act differently towards me and be overly sympathetic towards me, treat me differently. And so there was definitely an attractive part of me and Sanja's story that she had nothing to do with that obviously she was aware of the accidents. It was all over the news when it happened. She knew it happened, but if we had been dating when it happened, I don't know how different things would have been. Maybe not at all. But I can definitely remember the fact that we were in completely different social circles. The fact that I lived in Newport Beach and she lived in San Clemente and had different friends and different restaurants and different bars and different beaches. Sanja, I can remember one of the most exciting things early in our relationship was that it felt like a fresh start. Here's a girl that wasn't a part of my life when I lost Steve and I lost Matt. Here's a girl who's aware of my story but wasn't a part of it. And here's a whole new group of friends and a whole new waves to surf and whole new bars to drink beers in. It was I got to be another person that didn't have a story anymore, because in my social group, I started dating Sanja 3.5 years after the accident. So even then it was still recently enough that it's I was always the guy that went through the crap. And to be with Sanja and her friends who had never heard of me before because she had made a new group of friends, they didn't know anything. I bet you a lot of her friends still don't even know my story. And so I do remember that, to Sanja's point of being a fresh breath of fresh air, that I could actually hang out with people and they don't ask me, hey, do you still talk to Steve and Matt's parents? Hey, do you still visit the grave? Hey, let me see your scars. Hey, are you still blind in one eye? To just have conversations it never happened was actually really cool. I can totally remember that. But she does support me now though. So I think your question was how did she support me through it? She wasn't a part of it, but she understands it now. And, Sanja has this superhuman power of empathy, not sympathy, but empathy, where she actually feels what people feel. And so, we still have hard days, on the anniversaries of their birthdays and deaths and stuff. And she's right there with me. And we just had this retreat we took in Mexico that we do every year with 30 entrepreneurs. And we go down there and, that's where I went after losing Steve and Matt to clear my mind. And so revisiting the place I lived in Mexico, a lot of those old emotions come up, and she and I had an amazing, this is back in October, so maybe 2 months ago now, we had this amazing experience down there together too. So she wasn't part of it when it happened, but her support now is incredible.
One thing I really admire about you guys is your ability to connect with so many people regardless of their beliefs and backgrounds. Is that stemming largely from your own confidence in who you are as people? Obviously a zero judgment policy in the way you live for those relationships to develop. I often ask people who have notoriety and are also aligned with faith, how do they facilitate healthy relationships with so many, although amazing and generous people who believe completely differently than you, but still maintain your values? We
love everybody. And I think that we're not the perfect Christians. There's plenty of things that we do that aren't right. Not that I'm proud of that. It's just,
well, nobody's perfect.
Yeah. That was the one thing that I loved about Cole when we first started dating, is that he was a man of faith and he wanted to go to church, and he would ask me every Sunday, hey, do you want to come with me? No. Okay. He never forced it upon me. And I thought I was very drawn to that because he was different. And I feel like the people that I was generally stereotyping all these Christians, that they were just forcing it upon me, that I was going to go to hell. I just didn't like the people that I had been around. And to see Cole was just a breath fresh of air, just saying hey, you know what? Do you want a relationship with God? Then come with me. And if you don't, no worries. He never pushed it on me. And so I think that's why I wanted to go. Because I was more interested in it at that, just thinking about it. Okay, yeah, let me just try this out. I mean, I did go because I lost a bet And I heard some beautiful worship music that gave me goosebumps, and
It made you cry too.
it made me cry. Oh, that music is just incredible. I love music. Anyway, we have plenty of friends that are not believers, and I'm just hopeful that maybe one day they'll just be watching us, and they just sometimes ask more questions. They'll say, so wait, if you do this, does that mean that? And the fact that we don't push it on them, I think they get intrigued by it as well. And they see our lifestyle and they see just how we are. And I think more and more people have become believers just being around us. I mean, Thrive, our event, nowhere does it say, hey, this is a Christian event and whatnot. Some of the speakers, some speakers on stage, they're not believers either. But I think just bringing awareness when Cole's on stage and he'll say, my creator, I believe this, and, God has put me here. And it's just those little tiny, he's just planting seeds. And then people just want to know a little bit more. And we've had messages where people just said, after I went to Thrive or after I heard your podcast, I went back to church and it was so wonderful. That's and awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah. And then, when we go to our Mexico retreat, we just had someone that was saved, and it's nothing that we push on anybody. But if you're coming along for the ride and you happen to want to know some questions, or, we're right there.
Somebody once told me that we're the only Bible some people will read. And so I think that's important. But yeah, like Sanja said, we're not judgmental. I think that in all faiths, right? Like, you have these Islamic terrorists, extremists that are blowing people up, claiming to be Muslim. Yet some of my friends that are Muslim are some of the most caring, compassionate, loving, docile humans on earth. Yet the mass media says, oh, well, someone's Muslim, they must want to kill everybody. It's like, no. These people are total douchebags that are causing terror in the name of religion. It is not a religious person. Likewise, for Christianity, you've got the KKK, this group of rednecks that hate anyone that looks different than them, and they claim to do it in the name of Christ, right? And they claim to be Christians and carrying out the Bible's message. And so then people from the outside say, oh, cool, Christians are racists. They hate gay people. They hate Jews. They hate like whatever the KKK represents. It's like, we all need to realize that the KKK is a terrorist group, and Islamic extremists is a terrorist group. And because they cite religion as their reason for their hate to try to justify it, it is not actually at all contextually accurate with the belief system of either of those religious groups, if that makes sense. And so I know growing up, I can remember seeing things within my own church. And as a young man growing up, it was harmful. And then I realized when I got older, people are people, they're going to make their own decisions. And so I don't know how deep into religion we're supposed to get on this podcast, but I'm going to just say, here's what I did around 19. I
actually have a John Piper book. I wanted to dive into chapter 3 with you guys.
Cool. Yeah. John Piper, man. There you go. But no, for real, this is like 19 was when I decided on my own to have a relationship. And here's what I decided. I'm a Christian. So the root word is Christ. The suffix is IAN, which means to be of. Like, I live in California, so I'm Californian, right? And so I have read the Gospels countless times, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that document the life of Christ. And when I see what Jesus did, he basically, in those 4 books of the Bible, loved the outcasts. He hung out with the lepers. He, mentored the woman at the well who was a prostitute. He hung out with the quote unquote unsavory folks of his generation. And he called out the Pharisees and talked crap on the religious leaders of being hypocrites. So when I look at Christ, it's like, I'm supposed to be Christ-like. Christian means to be like Christ. And so I see him loving everybody equally and only being frustrated with those that are taking the Bible or a relationship with God out of context. And so it's like, I didn't see Christ in the Gospels hating gay people. I didn't see him hating people that were of different skin tones or ethnic groups than him. I didn't see him hating rich people. He said that God says that King David was a man after his own heart. King Solomon, they say that if you could convert his dollars to today, would be the wealthiest man on earth. So you don't see him hating rich people. You don't see him hating anybody. You see him pissed at religious people taking religion out of context and loving everybody else. And so Sanja and I love these people. I'm not perfect, and I have my own sin in my own way. And so, but when it comes to judging people, that's not for me. I'm called to love unconditionally. So that's what we do. So it's really cool. Sanja does it better than me. She actually has made me grow in this area. Not that I was judgmental before, but birds of a feather flock together. So I hung out with predominantly like heterosexual male entrepreneurs, right? And then like here's Sanja, who freaking just literally loves your heart. She doesn't care if you're gay, man, woman, fat, skinny, tall, short. Like she can figure out really quickly who you are as a human, and then who you decide to be and how you show up is how Sanja, she decides who you are. Like who you are is who you are, right? And so I've always been a fan and impressed with her ability of absolutely 100% accepting people exactly like they are. And if they suck, cutting them out of our lives. And if they're amazing, embracing them. And so, there are Christian or whatever, Catholic or Mormon or whatever these religious leaders that would disagree with that. But, that's for me to talk about with God. I'm just going to love everybody. Although I might not agree with or endorse a lifestyle, I'm not going to condemn it. Yeah,
so
totally.
Would you say, Sanja and Cole, your walk is generating curiosity about your faith?
For sure. And I think that's the best, because pushing it on someone, it's not genuine. And keeping the door open and constantly loving on everybody and just being generous, I think that people have been intrigued. And I love the platform that we've been given. It's the easiest way to reach people is by, our stage at Thrive, these interviews. And
for sure. And you guys are living the dream at this point. I know there's a lot going on in your lives. I can't imagine the amount of responsibility you're taking on, especially hosting this conference annually. But I would ask, I'm really curious, actually, how you mentioned before, Dr. Eric Thomas, E.T., the hip hop preacher, how much of what you've been blessed with is do you believe in part to prayer? I know you guys work super hard. I'm not negating that. I'm just asking if you've really used that to your advantage.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up ET. I'm literally texting him right now. He's in Vegas right now with a lot of our friends. So, that's something that I actually been convicted with lately is my prayer life needs to get better. I'm always great at praying for thankfulness. When I put my little girls to bed and I see them lying there, I'm like, dude, thank you, God, so much for this little girl. And we always pray before meals, and I'll literally be with business colleagues who may be agnostic or freaking atheist or whatever. I don't even care. Sonny and I, every single meal, we say, everyone put your hands in our hands, and people are like, whoa, what are we doing? Boy. Just hold hands. We're going to pray. We've prayed and consistently prayed daily. But actually having conversation with God is something I need to get better in, like that morning, just without an agenda. It's always just praying for things or asking for something. Like, God, thank you so much for my little girl. Please keep her safe. Keep her safe from disease. Keep her safe from injury. Like, bless this little girl's life. Amen. Right? I have recently thought about how I got to, I had to get better in my prayer life.
Well, if I can encourage you guys, one thing that's really encouraging for me is it's encouraging to see that there are other believers who are walking their faith, lifting everyone around them up in the process and generating curiosity around that just through the love that you're giving out. I really admire that, but also just encourage you to continue with that and not shy away from ever saying a little extra about that, because it's interesting. I actually lost a friend a month and a half ago. He took his own life, unfortunately. He was in San Ramon, California. But one thing that he said to me, he was I believe he identified as atheist, but he was like, yeah, one of your first episode for your podcast, I was really interested to hear more about how your faith has affected your life. And I definitely touched on it, but I didn't talk about it all that much. And when he said that to me, it just kind of made me realize that if I'm, you guys are a great example of living it in a good way, like to where you're not being pushy, but you are being open about it. And I just want to share that with you because, Ed Milet, another great example of that. He's kind of subtly there, but if you wanted to ask him about it, he's more than happy to get into that with you.
Yeah, Ed Milet and then Jim Rohn, who's obviously passed. But if you catch any Jim Rohn audio, he'll quote a businessman like Henry Ford, and then the next quote will be a proverb like from the Bible or a Bible verse. And it's like, I think John C. Maxwell does the same. And so you can listen to Jim Rohn or John C. Maxwell from the audience, being a member of a different faith group or having no faith or even being angry towards God and not be offended. And it's like, I think that's how Sonny and I show up. Again, Thrive, make money matter. Make money matter essentially is tithing. And so we stand up there on stage and, I openly talk about God. I literally was just rewatching the opening 2 minutes of me at Thrive this year. And I was like, welcome everybody. This is a family ran business. My family and I literally pray for all you guys. So I opened the conference up by telling the whole audience, we pray for all of them. And so, we're not ashamed of it. Yeah, because there's nothing to be ashamed of.
And I'm sure they appreciate that. That's the thing. Even if they I completely don't believe that, they're atheists, even if that, they see the congruence in what you say you believe and they appreciate the love.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
That's awesome. Cool. So sticking with this topic, I'm wondering, how does faith give you guys more confidence to live wide open, to really go for things?
I would say, I don't know, it's just belief. And Sonia, I'll let you respond in a second. There's back to the Gospels. There's a story of Jesus being frustrated with his disciples and saying, if you had seed or faith the size of a mustard seed, surely you could tell this mountain, throw yourself in the ocean, and it would. And he was basically calling people out that with faith, anything can happen. And then I always keep in mind when he's talking about prayer, I think towards the end of Matthew, he says basically pray as though it has already happened. And then there's knock at the door will be open, seek and you shall get your answer, right? All these different verses. And so I just kind of, in a general sense, there's nothing supernatural in my day-to-day life. I don't refresh my bank account, close my eyes and say, God, can I have more money? And I refresh it. Thank you. It's not like that, which would be nice, but then that would be a genie and not a God. But I think that listening to the stories and then the examples of what I've seen God blessing us in our own life in past just knows, hey, he'll continue to bless the future. And so let's go. And doors will open, doors will close. But as long as we're staying true to our message and what I feel God called us to do, there's business partnerships I've really wanted that didn't work out. And probably because, I don't know, maybe God was protecting me for something. And then there's business partnerships that are absolutely crazy, like Eric Thomas, that you just mentioned. The guy is living in Orange County for the entire month of December. He's actually coming to our house for Christmas dinner. He and his whole family are flying. They've already flown here. They're living in Orange County. And instead of going home to their house for Christmas, they will be here. And it's holy crap, the number one motivational speaker in the world and I are launching a business together and we're doing our own events together starting January. How in the heck is that possible? Well, that's a God thing. That's the fact that E.T., the hip hop preacher, a man of faith of every human on earth, found me and said, let's do stuff together, you and I, is an absolute answer to prayer. And then there's these other entrepreneurs that I've been pursuing for years that it's treat me like I'm just some, groupie out there and that I don't have anything to bring to them. And it's maybe that's God closing that door because God's nope, I don't want you to work with this person and watch this. You just be faithful. And out of everyone on the earth, I'm going to make E.T. fall in love with you and your family. So that's it for me.
Amen.
What about you, Sanja?
That is the truth. If we would have done some business partnerships with people that we had the opportunity with, we would not be as successful. I definitely believe that. And something that I think that's really fun is my mother-in-law, Cole's mom, Marta. She will do group texts with the entire family, all her kids and all the husbands and wives. She gets everyone on a group text and we all put a little black dot on our hand. And we'll pray every time we see that black dot on our hand, whatever she was asking. So, she'll say, hey, let's all pray for this opportunity that was given to Cole and Sanja. And we have the whole family praying about it. And, every time I look at my hand, I see that black dot and I'm like, is this business partner the right one for this, God? Is this what needs to happen? And, when the door closed, I was pretty sad. And I was like, this is not what I wanted, but thank God it didn't work out the way I wanted. And now, E.T.'s here and he is just the perfect person to be in partnership with. He's making me want to read the Bible more. He makes Cole and I a better person just being around him. And that's the best type of business partner to be.
Yep.
Boom. Wow. Just a side note, we've been interviewing for about 40 minutes now. You guys are crushing the interview. Is it okay if we go for another 10 minutes?
Yeah, totally.
Great. So we'll jump into the Heart Healthy Hustle round next. It's a series of rapid fire questions based on the show's title. So are you guys ready?
Yep.
The first category is heart. What is your favorite activity for strengthening your internal character?
Mine would be audits. Cole and I do this, you have to audit your business every single week or month or year, right? So you have to know what's going on. What are the numbers looking like? Are you doing well? What do you need to change? And so I love that Cole, he'll sit me down and say, you know what, we need to audit our relationship as well. And we figure out, okay, we have this day free. Let's go on a date this day. He needs more quality time. That's his love language. So I make sure let's fit that in on the schedule. And I'll tell him that I need something and I'm feeling I need to talk with him more. So he'll take me outside and we'll go have a coffee and sit by our fountain. And so I love we audit our business and we audit our relationship. And I think that just helps our hearts in every aspect, which helps us be better parents, CEOs, and all around.
Yeah, because being business partners, husband, wife, and parents, it's definitely a balancing act. So what Sanja's saying about the audits is huge because Tony Robbins, I don't know where he got it, but I heard him tell the story first. How to boil a frog, as grotesque as that is if you've got boiling water and you throw a frog in it, it'll jump out because it hurts. The way you cook a frog, apparently, although I'm not a big frog cooker. Yeah, exactly. Is you throw it in room temperature water and it just kind of swims around and then you start boiling the water and the frog doesn't notice that the temperature is rising until it's cooked. And I think without being a relationship expert or counselor, I think that a lot of people end in divorce because they're losing their love or they're losing their relationship 1 degree at a time until they wake up one day, 10, 15, 25 years in the marriage and say, oh, we fell out of love and became better friends. And it's like, no, you just didn't notice that you were letting go what was special. So Sanja and I doing these audits, and she actually talked about that at Thrive, is huge. And so she's a G at that. So for our hearts, the audits are good. And then mine's a more selfish answer. For my heart, it's driving my cars. Whenever Sanja knows it too. Like if I'm pissed because 4 or 5 bad things happen in a row, like, we get an email from our hotel that they're going to charge us more. And then we get I don't know, I'm having to re-enroll.
Speaker cancels.
Yeah, speaker cancels. And like this morning I was all irritated that we have to re-enroll in health insurance and I'm paying $1 gazillion a month for literally nothing. It's like, hey, you're going to pay us $2 million a month. And if anything happens, we cover zero. And I'm like, what is all this? Like, so then she'll see me getting irritated and she'll literally say, you need to go drive. And I'm like, okay, fine. I go get my car, go rip it around for 30 minutes. I'm better. So for my heart, it's really cars. But Sanja's was a much more romantic and real answer that is more duplicatable for your audience, that you need to audit your personal lives the same way you would audit your business. You audit you audit a lot of areas of business. Like she said, how's our marketing? How's our ROAS, return on ad spend? You don't just audit a business in general. You audit each facet of the business. And we do that in our relationship as well.
Awesome. Cole, what's the I'm pissed car?
Which one?
Yeah, I got a few cars. Probably the Dodge Viper or the Audi R8.
Not the Camaro.
I'd say probably maybe even the Audi. I probably drive the R8 the most.
It's awesome how you guys recognize those needs for each other. Health is the next category. How do you maintain your physical health and balance while living a fast-paced life with a young family?
We have our trainers that come to us and that holds us accountable. They're going to show up at our door and you'll see like Cole on a snap, he's boxing, or, they'll message me and say, hey, do we need to bring over some food? How are you guys doing? Are you eating healthy? Or did you go for your run? You could do farther. And so it's really nice having a trainer that will hold us accountable. Otherwise, I just let it slip.
Yeah, totally. We have a home gym. Sanja did a fitness contest last year, and so she was actually going to the gym every day. But just with our schedule, it's so hard. That's actually what was supposed to happen today at 12, which is why I wasn't going to be able to join this podcast because I need to get ready. My trainer texted me saying, let's move it to 1. So he'll pull up to my house today at 12:50, and whether I want to or not, I'm paying him. So it's financial accountability too. Like, let's just say I get distracted. He shows up at 12:50 and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't work out. He'll be like, no problem. He'll leave. And I paid for it anyway. So it's an extra incentive to be like, oh, fine, I'll put down the laptop. So with the pace of our lives, we're running 3 businesses right now, plus partnerships like with ET and a few others. So our lives are crazy. And we're launching a new business in the first quarter of next year. So that being said, the only way that it does work is to schedule it. Instead of saying, I'm going to go to the gym today, it has to literally be scheduled. And then what makes it even easier is the trainer holding me accountable. Because even if I scheduled today for 1 p.m., it's easy to be like, I've got more important things to do. But the fact that there's another person who's making a living off of this and is going to show up, it happens. I just realized you said rapid fire, so I'll stop making these answers so long.
No problem. Hustle. What is your main motivation for hustling and working to reach the max of your potential?
Mine would be to be a good example to our little girls. Both of them just see us working hard all the time and it's just normal. And, going to Mexico and donating their toys, and it's just normal to be generous. Brighton, she'll earn some money and she puts it right in her piggy bank, which is the cutest piggy bank ever that her daddy bought her. And it says invest, it says donate, it says spend. It's got different little dividers inside the piggy bank. And so for her, when she gets money, she divvies it up and she will spend some, she'll invest some, and then she'll donate. And I love that it's just normal for her because we're trying to be the best examples that we can. And, with prayer every night, it's normal for her to pray before she goes to bed. She talks to Jesus, and she telling them and giving them the affirmations that they're extraordinary and that they're fearless has helped my daughter feel that she's invincible. And that just makes our hearts happy, knowing that she's a Hatter and she never gives up. And she tells everybody, you never give up. You're a Hatter. And I'm like, not everyone's a Hatter, baby. But yeah, just being a good example.
I'd say for me, what's my motivation for hustle? I think was a question is, I feel like God gave us a lot of work to do, man. And so I got to get it done. I want to get to heaven and hear, well done, my good and faithful servant, and you I am well pleased. So got to grind it out.
100%. I want to end it with a favorite question. I call it the park bench paradigm. If you were walking in a park, think of a local park if you want, no one else really around, you see your younger self sitting on that bench and you're going through a really rough time. You feel isolated. You're in a restless state of your life where a lot of big things are on the way. You have some faith in that, but you're not sure when, how, where, what, and exactly where to put your efforts. Using the pronoun you, what would you say if you could go up, put your hand around your own shoulder?
I would just say what I tell my baby girls all the time, never give up. It sounds so cliche, but I feel sometimes like we're banging our head against the wall trying to figure out how to make some things go. And, there's lots of good news and bad news in business, but just keeping the mindset of never give up is just huge. We wanted to have ET speak at our conference, and for 3 years we had just kept trying. And now he is a partner with Cole. And it's like, what if we did give up? And so wow. It's just persevering through all of it has been, I think, the greatest thing.
If I was talking to my younger self using the pronoun you, I'd say you are going to be crazy blessed with wife, family, opportunity. Don't waste it.
That's good.
Boom.
Drop the mic.
That's all I'm thinking is mic drop right there. Yes. And so we have attendthrive.com. Cole and Sanja, how can my audience get in touch with you?
On Instagram, my handle is just Sanja Hatter.
That's Sanja.
Mm-hmm. It looks like Sanja.
Because she's Yugoslavian and they don't know how to spell. So,
so it's Sanja Hatter. And then Cole's is Cole Hatter. And that's probably the best to see our lives. And then, just attendthrive.com. They can get all the good details of our transformational event.
For my audience, I am going to that conference, guys. So I want you to check it out as well. If you have any questions, you can email me directly at jonathan@thehearthealthyhustle.com. And I will be happy to point you to the resources that will answer those questions for you and get you out to that conference. Cole and Sanja, I really enjoyed this interview. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah, good job, dude. I've done podcasts. It's always the same questions. I never really get to talk about faith. So that was fun.
Yeah, I was like, he's still here. And I loved hearing everything. That was really nice. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, thanks for having us, bro.
Congratulations on making it to the end of this episode. What about this episode stood out to you? Next, I need your help sharing this show. I want this podcast to impact and reach 6,000 people per episode by August 31st, 2019. And I want us to reach 15,000 people per month by March 29th, 2020. Have you been enjoying multiple episodes of The Heart Healthy Hustle? I'm thrilled to share with you an exclusive invitation to join our new Facebook community. To get to know other Heart Healthy Hustlers, simply go to thehearthealthyhustle.com/Facebook, where you can expect to see different members of our community being featured weekly in Facebook Live calls. I appreciate all of your love and support, and I will see you in the next episode. As always, be generous on every occasion. There is a story for you, and live wide open.